Welcome to 6 Degrees of Wiki, a podcast where two sisters find the 6 degrees of separation between Wikipedia articles that don't seem to have anything in common. I'm Rosanna.
And I'm Nikki. Today we'll fall into a Wikipedia spiral where we have just 6 rounds to figure out how the first degree could possibly be connected to the last, while learning all sorts of peculiar facts along the way. Let's get started.
Today we are spiraling from Aretha Franklin to pseudohistory. I chose Aretha Franklin for my starting degree because February is Black History Month, and Aretha Franklin was an amazingly talented Black American musician. What do you think about these degrees, Nikki?
Well, they obviously have so much in common. I mean, who couldn't see the connections, really?
Right?
These degrees there's nothing. You didn't even throw me a bone and let them start with the same letter of the alphabet. I mean, there's nothing there.
Nope.
Unless there's some, fake history about Aretha, which seems possible. Now I just want to hear rumors about her that were around. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I think I'm going to have to go wild with my guesses on this one.
Wonderful.
That's so unlike my usual self.
Best kind. Round 1. Aretha Franklin was an American singer, songwriter, and activist. Pseudohistory is a form of pseudo-scholarship that distorts or misrepresents historical records while using methods that look like legitimate historical research.
Oh. I feel like that describes a lot of the citations I used in my papers in college. That teacher's never going to check that library book out, so I think we're okay.
So, based on those small descriptions, now do you see anything that they have in common?
Oh yeah, that cleared up all of my confusion. Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, so let's learn a little bit more, or a lot bit more, about Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin was an activist and a supporter of women's rights and civil rights and Native Americans' rights and pretty much everybody's rights that weren't getting their rights.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you say rights again?
Rights.
That wasn't enough.
Rights. She won like 1 million awards. Everybody loved her. For real.
Did they show her some RESPCT?
They DID. Aretha Franklin was born in 1942 at home in Memphis, Tennessee, which is a coincidence because I was born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1942. No. I was born in Memphis, but it was a couple years later. Her father was a Baptist minister, and her mother was an accomplished piano player and vocalist, so we see where she got her talent.
Ah, nice.
When she was about 2, they moved to Buffalo, New York, then on to Detroit. By the time she turned 10, she had lost her mother.
Oh, it's really sad.
Yeah, she was taken care of by several women in her family, aunts, grandmothers, and her father. She learned to play the piano by ear, took no lessons.
Wow.
Her father started managing her when she was 12, and he actually took her on tours with him where he was preaching and she was singing gospel music.
That worked out pretty well for him.
Her first recording deal was with JVB Records, and she recorded 9 tracks. Then she just kept releasing albums over the next few years. When she was 16, she went on a tour with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and eventually she would sing at his funeral in 1968.
Those are some serious credentials.
When she was 18, she moved to New York. She said she wanted to record pop music instead of gospel. She wanted to mix it up a little bit. So her father said okay, and he continued to be her manager. Columbia Records signed her in 1960, and her first single was Today I Sing the Blues. Her first secular album was called Aretha with the Ray Bryant Combo. And the single Won't Be Long was her first to chart on the Billboard Hot 100. She continued to perform in a bunch of different genres. She tried vocal jazz, blues, R&B, and doo-wop. The song Rockabye Your Baby with Dixie Melody was her first international hit. And she continued to record albums with hit songs, and she performed in nightclubs and theaters. She moved to Atlantic Records in 1966, and then during the recording, her recording was interrupted because her husband, her manager, the studio owner, and one of the horn players got into a fight while she was recording.
That's really weird because you'd think they'd be a little busy, recording and paying attention rather than talking to each other and getting into a fight.
Yeah, the song she was recording at the time was I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. And they finished the song and still released it. And it was actually her first top 10 pop single.
I feel like while she was singing that, she was thinking, I don't really think this is true right now. I'm mad at all of you.
She probably wanted to sock them all and tell them to shut up. Then in 1967, she released her signature song, Respect.
Mm-hmm.
That song was later used as a civil rights and feminist anthem.
Really an anthem for anything.
After several unsuccessful albums, she left Atlantic Records, and she signed with Arista Records. After that, she appeared in the 1980s movie The Blues Brothers. And then she was able to release several successful albums, including a certified platinum record.
Nice.
A few more of her most famous hits include Chain of Fools, I Say a Little Prayer, and You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. Plus, she did the theme song for the TV show A Different World. Over her career, she won 2 Grammys and a bunch of other different kinds of awards. Her final top 40 single was 1988's A Rose Is Still a Rose, and that album sold more than 500,000 copies.
Wow.
During the 1998 Grammy Awards, she was booked to perform in honor of the Blues Brothers film that she was in. But right after the show started, Luciano Pavarotti called in saying that he was too sick to perform. So they had her sing his piece, Nessun Dorma. She was a friend of his and had just performed the song 2 nights before. Over 1 billion people saw her performance, and she got a standing ovation. Then she performed it several more times over the next year and recorded it. She left Arista Records in 2004. She performed My Country 'Tis of Thee at President Obama's inaugural ceremony, and eventually she started her own label called Aretha's Records.
I remember the hat at the inauguration. That was a big deal.
In 2014, she performed to a standing ovation a compilation of Rolling in the Deep and Ain't No Mountain High Enough while on The Late Show with David Letterman. She released a cover of Rolling Into the Deep, which debuted at number 47 on Billboard's Hot R&B Hip-Hop Songs, and that made her the first person to have had 100 songs on that chart.
Wow. That is a lot.
It is 100. That's a lot of songs. I mean, people are really excited if they get 5.
Or even 1.
She continued to perform at events and released records. In 2017, there were several concerts that she had to cancel because she was starting to have some health issues. She gave her final performance in November of 2017 during Elton John's 25th anniversary gala for the Elton John AIDS Foundation. And she passed away at home August 16th, 2018 at age 76. The interesting fact I have about Aretha Franklin kind of blew my mind because I didn't even know she had any kids. Aretha Franklin had 4 sons, and these are the ages she was when she gave birth to them.
Okay.
28, 22, 15, and 12. Yeah.
It's really upsetting.
I know, isn't it sad?
Yeah.
Round 2. Okay, Nikki, what do you think the next degree is?
Lucky for me, I started taking notes before I got distracted by all the cool facts about Aretha Franklin. So I managed to write down 2 things before I forgot to write down anything else.
Great.
These 2 things are actually related to each other. I wrote down Memphis, Tennessee, and Martin Luther King Jr.
Ah.
And as many know, Martin Luther King Jr. was in Memphis when he was assassinated. Anyway,
yes,
I am going to go with Memphis purely because that's where you were born, Rosanna.
That's true.
So, that's the best idea I have.
Okay, I love it.
Let's do it.
I love when things are about me, so yeah. Okay. Your guess of Memphis, Tennessee is incorrect.
Oh.
I am sorry.
Was it MLK?
No. The next degree is Nessun Dorma.
Is what now?
Nessun Dorma.
Is that a name? Did you just make that up?
It's the song that Aretha Franklin sang.
Oh! Pavarotti.
Yeah. So, Nessun Dorma. The Nessun Dorma is an aria from the final act of Giacomo Puccini's opera Turandot, and it's one of the best-known tenor arias in all of opera. So, it is sung by the character Caliph, who at the time is known as the Unknown Prince. He falls in love at first sight with Princess Turandot. He can only marry her if he answers 3 riddles.
Is she the Sphinx?
No, but I mean, she's a princess.
You can only get by her with riddles?
There are rules about marrying princesses. Have you never read a fairy tale?
I didn't realize they involved riddles.
So, but listen though, if he fails answering all 3 riddles correctly, they're gonna chop off his head.
So high stakes then.
Yes. He doesn't fail. He answers them, but she doesn't want to marry him anyway. So he says, okay, I know you don't want to marry me, so I'm going to give you a challenge. And if you can guess my name, you can execute me. If you can't guess my name, you have to marry me. So I feel like he really needed a lesson in consent.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the way to a girl's heart is to challenge her to guess something about you.
Yeah, she's like, I just don't want to marry you. No thank you. So the piece was popularized by Luciano Pavarotti in the 1990s after his recording of it was used at the 1990 World Cup. His single of the song reached number 2 on the UK charts, and it's been sung by a lot of crossover artists in movies and TV. A couple of the movies it's been in, The Sum of All Fears, Bend It Like Beckham, and Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, which I feel like is different kinds of movies.
Yes.
Interesting fact about Nessun Dorma, the Guardian journalist called Lee Calvert has a football podcast called Nessun Dorma.
Now, football is in soccer? Or football like American football?
Oh, Nikki, I don't know. Here's the deal. I would not listen to a football podcast either way, so I don't know.
No offense to football fans out there.
No, of course
We're just not one of you.
Yeah.
Round 3.
All right, Nikki. What's the next degree?
I wrote down 2 things in desperation at the end of the information you were giving.
Okay, good.
Because I remembered I didn't have anything. So all I've got, with absolutely no reason, is World Cup and Bend It Like Beckham.
Nice.
Both about soccer.
Very sporty.
So that's what makes me think that the football podcast is football.
Football.
Like soccer, football.
Okay.
Football. I don't know what accent that was supposed to be, but
A bad one, as usual.
thank you. That's my favorite kind. Neither of those seem like they might have any connection with pseudo-history. Except, here's a piece of trivia for you listeners. You know how the Europeans make fun of Americans for calling soccer soccer, not football?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, way back in, I think, the 80s, the British people also called it soccer.
Oh.
And they just, changed to calling it football and then started making fun of us for calling it soccer.
They were trying to distance themselves from us, understandably.
Exactly. They were trying to change the history, rewrite history.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Pseudo-history of what they actually called it just to make themselves feel superior. So British people out there, I am on to you. I know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And your pseudo-history. Therefore, I'm going with... You didn't actually say the word soccer. I'm going with World Cup.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Your guess of the World Cup is incorrect.
Okay.
The next degree is love at first sight.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know what? I was going to be sad about the whole soccer thing, but I'm cool with some romance.
This is better, right?
That sounds nice. Yeah.
Okay. Love at first sight is a personal experience and a common trope in literature.
Yes.
The person or character feels an instant, extreme, and long-lasting romantic attraction for a stranger at the very first sight of them. It has been described by poets as far back as ancient Greece. Everybody loves this idea.
Yeah, I also love that it's really just infatuation and not love.
So the Greeks called it theia mania, or madness from the gods, which makes sense.
Ooh. Another great band name.
Madness from the gods.
Mm-hmm.
And that was as part of their context for passionate love. It was also described through the metaphorical love's arrows or love darts. Like they shot darts into their eyes.
Well, Cupid's arrow is that whole thing.
Yes, from Cupid or from arrows. Biblical references for love at first sight include Isaac and Rebecca and Jacob and Rachel. In literature, you have Romeo and Juliet, Sense and Sensibility, The Little Mermaid, Les Mis. There's even a line about love at first sight in The Hunger Games.
Oh. Who had love at first sight in the Hunger Games?
PETA. He loves Katniss first time he sees her.
That's right. Throwing out that bread into the rain.
That's right. Examples of love at first sight in music. Some Enchanted Evening. She Will Be Loved by Maroon 5. And Styx and Kylie Minogue both have a song called Love at First Sight. In movies, you see it in Cinderella, From Here to Eternity, The Godfather, 10 Things I Hate About You, Titanic, The Notebook, and here's a weird one, Blade Runner.
I know that I should probably run down these entire lists because you're probably going to get the next degree from somewhere in this giant list of references.
Maybe. A couple of TV shows that use this trope are Vampire Diaries and The Simpsons. Apparently, Homer fell in love with Marge at first sight.
That's very nice. I also love that you put those two shows side by side. Like they have anything to do with each other.
They both have love at first sight.
They do.
Here's an interesting fact. In some medieval texts, the gaze of a beautiful woman is compared to the sight of a basilisk, which I feel like is kind of rude.
Because that turns you to stone, right? Or just kills you straight on the spot? It just
kills you, yeah.
Thank you, ancient writers.
Round 4.
Okay, Nikki, couple degrees left to go to get to pseudohistory. What do you think the next degree is?
Now, knowing you, the next degree is probably on that long list of literature and movies.
Is it?
But I'm instead gonna make like a stretch guess, which is very unlike me. And go with Eros, the god. Hear me out.
Okay.
As I make up the reason on the spot.
Great.
Because gods are mythical, and yet a lot of history is based on, well, a lot of history for many cultures is based on interaction with gods, which is not real history.
That's
but it's
true.
what they used that they kind of took as gospel. Thank you. I'm here all week. And therefore, their history is kind of fake based on the reference of one single god, in particular, Eros. So Eros.
Okay.
Did I convince you?
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter if you convince me. It's either right or wrong.
That's true.
I think it's a good argument.
Thank you.
Your guess of the god Eros is incorrect.
Okay. What was it?
Yeah, you might get mad about this.
Uh-oh.
The next degree is romance.
Can you see the look on my face?
I cannot
Rosanna.
over these hundreds of miles, but I can imagine it.
Ridiculous.
I didn't think you'd like that.
Eros is the personification of romance.
Here's the thing. Eros wasn't a link in the first paragraph.
Ah, good point.
All right, let's talk about romance. Oh,
Okay.
Side note, BT Dubs, now you can see why I decided to go with this spiral for February.
Yes, I can.
Romance is the emotional feeling of love or strong attraction to another person and the courtship behaviors that are used to express those feelings. Historically, the term originates with the medieval idea of chivalry and comes from the Latin word Romanicus, which means of the Roman style.
Okay.
Before I read this article, I never saw the word Roman in romance.
I never thought about it either.
According to author Anthony Giddens, the rise of romantic love coincided with the emergence of novels. So people started writing novels and they started putting romance into it.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of romantic love became popular in Western culture through the concept of courtly love, or the devotion of a knight to his lady, but like a non-physical relationship, just the devotion and loyalty. Pretty much everybody put it in every piece of fiction because people ate it up. They love it.
Yeah.
Even though it's most popular from medieval times, some historians think that romantic love actually evolved independently over multiple cultures, which makes sense to me.
Yeah.
There are several different types of romance. Popular romance includes idealist love, predictable love, unpredictable love, intense but out of control love, and grand or demonstrative love. Divine or spiritual romance includes realistic and unrealistic, optimistic and pessimistic, emotional and personal, soulful, infinite, and unconditional. Aristophanes said that people descended from beings with spherical torsos that had two sets of human limbs and their faces were back to back. They were split by the gods.
That's not creepy at all, Aristophanes.
They were split by the gods and then spent their lives looking for their other half. That's where you get the idea of a soulmate. Psychologist Marty Hazelton considers romantic love a commitment device that creates long-lasting relationships and that will ensure that children are fed and cared for and will reach adulthood. So here's an interesting fact about romance. Recent research suggests that romantic relationships impact daily behaviors, and people are influenced by the eating habits of their romantic partners. Early in the romantic relationship, women are more likely to be influenced by the eating patterns of men. However, when romantic relationships are established, men become influenced by the eating patterns of the women.
That makes me think, if you follow a very traditional path of romance, that when a man and woman first start dating, they go out to eat, and she's influenced by what he chooses from a menu. But later, when they've been in a relationship for a while, she's probably cooking for him, again, in a very traditional relationship. And so whatever she cooks is what he's eating, and therefore he's pretty influenced by what she's making.
That's true, because if she's cooking, he's eating what she likes, because that's what she's making. Unless it's at my house, then she is not cooking. So there's that.
Round 5.
How are you feeling about this, Nikki?
Not good about my chances of getting the next degree guess right.
Okay. Well, what you got? Lay it on me.
My guess of romance to pseudo-history. There's a lot about the Romans in there, and the Greeks, maybe. And really the only connection I have is that they're, well, the ancient Greeks, at least, and the Romans were historical cultures. So, maybe there's some fake news in there somewhere.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with fake news about Romans.
Your guess of the ancient Romans and their fake news is incorrect.
Was it the Greeks?
No. The next degree is chivalry.
Chivalry.
Yes.
Fine.
Chivalry, or the chivalric code, is an informal social code of conduct that is usually associated with medieval Christian knights and gentlewomen. It mainly developed between 1170 and 1220. The characteristics of chivalry were popularized in medieval literature like The Matter of Britain, The Matter of France, and Historia, Regum, Britannia, which were taken as historically accurate for ages. The code of chivalry is a product of the late Middle Ages and comes from the idealization of historic knights fighting in the Holy Lands, but also the idea of courtly love. Examination of medieval literature shows chivalry being classified into 3 overlapping areas: duties to your countrymen, duties to God, and duties to women, which that's the most familiar one, chivalry, and how it pertains to how a man treats a woman, right? That's what we think about when we hear chivalry.
Yeah.
The code of chivalry developed in medieval Europe. However, its roots are actually from the Holy Roman Empire's idealization of the cavalryman. Chivalry actually comes from an old French term that meant horse soldiery. So It originally referred to horse-mounted men. Over time, though, it's come to refer to social and moral virtues. Léon Gautier, a French literary historian and scholar, had 10 Commandments of Chivalry that he published in 1883. Would you like to hear the 10 Commandments of Chivalry, Nikki?
I would love to. Please tell me.
Thou shalt believe all that the church teaches, and thou shalt observe all its directions.
Okay.
Thou shalt defend the church. Thou shalt respect all weaknesses, and shalt constitute thyself the defender of them.
So, women.
Yeah. I suppose we are all the weaknesses. Thou shalt love the country in which thou wast born. Thou shalt not recoil before thine enemy. So be brave.
That's a good one.
Pull out your inner Gryffindor. Thou shalt make war against the infidel without cessation and without mercy.
One of these things is not like the other.
Thou shalt perform scrupulously thy feudal duties, if they not be contrary to the laws of God. Thou shalt never lie, and shalt remain faithful to thy pledged word. Thou shalt be generous. Thou shalt be everywhere and always the champion of the right and the good against injustice and evil. The term chivalry is subjective, and no historical knight or fictitious knight ever followed all those commandments. It's sort of like a pick and choose, what do you call those kinds of menus? A la carte. There's actually also a lot of influence from the Romans and the Moors on medieval literature.
Oh, you mean the infidels?
The infidels! Yes. They get no mercy.
Apparently.
Spanish author Vincent Blasco said, Europe did not know chivalry or its adopted literature or sense of honor before the arrival of Arabs and the wide presence of their knights and heroes in the countries of the south.
That's a pretty blanket statement.
During the Tudor rule in England, fewer and fewer knights were needed in war because at that time the battlefields were starting to be run by professional infantrymen. So they didn't need knights, they had soldiers. While campaigning for gender equality in the early 20th century, suffragettes opposed the ideas of chivalry and considered it outdated. Chivalrous ideas of protecting women were seen as a trope, like the damsel in distress, and we were having none of it.
Round 6.
All right, Nikki, this is your last guess. What is the last degree before pseudohistory?
Somehow I'm no closer to this guess than I was when we were on Aretha Franklin.
So what is it?
Trying to decide which direction to go here. I kind of want to go with the Spanish thing where they said that they didn't know chivalry until the Arabs came. Because that seems like pseudo-history.
Okay.
But also maybe the code being used in more modern war times. That seems like a harder sell. Also, neither of them really seem right. So there's that. I guess I have to go with something. I didn't take any notes at all during that. All right, this is a terrible guess. Suffragettes.
Suffragettes.
Uh-huh.
For pseudo-history. That's a little rude.
I feel like there would have been a lot of bad things written that weren't true from people trying to discount suffragettes.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. That is incorrect. Not even going to draw it out. The next degree is Historia, Regum, Britannia.
Rosanna.
Yeah.
Rosanna.
Yeah.
Do I even need to say that's ridiculous? Thumbs down.
I don't even know if I pronounced that right. But aren't you interested in what it is?
Yes. But you are tricky. And that was
I know.
tricky.
Listen, here's the thing about this article.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of old words in here. And some of them aren't American. I mean, they're probably English, but they're not American. So I'm just going to do the best I can. This book is also known as The History of the Kings of Britain.
Okay.
Originally called De Gestis Britonum, or On the Deeds of the Britons. It is a pseudo-historical account of British history.
Okay.
It was written in or around 1136 by Geoffrey of Monmouth.
Hey, I've heard of him. Yeah.
The text covers the lives of the kings of the Britons for about 2,000 years. It starts with the Trojans and continues all the way up until the Anglo-Saxons took control over most of Britain in the 7th century. It's part of something called the Matter of Britain, which is a body of literature and legendary material. This was accepted as actual history all the way into the 16th century.
Wow.
Even though it's completely made up, it's still considered valuable for medieval literature, though, because it includes the earliest known version of the story of King Lear and popularized the legend of King Arthur. Geoffrey's book starts with a dedication to Robert, Earl of Gloucester and Walleran, Count of Meulan, sure, Meulan, and also it includes an explanation of why he decided to write it. He said he wasn't able to learn anything about the kings that lived before the incarnation of Christ, but he thought those men did things that deserved praise, so he just started writing stuff. He cites Archdeacon Walter of Oxford, Gildas, who was a 6th century British monk, and the Venerable Bede.
Oh, yeah.
As sources.
We've talked about him before.
Yeah. This manuscript, this whole story, has influenced so many works since it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And these stories and these characters have been woven through history. I mean,
yeah.
They pop up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Merlin, King Arthur, all that stuff. Interesting fact, the Merlin trilogy by Mary Stuart and the TV miniseries Merlin have both used very large elements from Historia for their storylines.
I love the show Merlin. It was so much fun.
And that takes us to pseudo-history. Pseudo-history is a form of pseudo-scholarship that distorts or misrepresents historical records, but it's using methods that look like legitimate historical research.
Yeah.
It usually provides a lie or sensational claim that would require the revision of known history. So, tricky. It's related to pseudoscience and another article that I haven't read, but I feel like I should, pseudoarchaeology.
Oh, cool.
Sounds awesome. It was first used to describe the contest of Homer and Hesiod, a fictional story of a contest between the Greek poets. It's also been defined as the rewriting of the past for personal or political purposes. Some characteristics are like treating myths and legends like the actual literal truth.
Yeah.
Another characteristic is ignoring logical evidence that is contrary to your claim. So just like pretending it doesn't exist. Or clinging to the claim that nothing can be absolutely certain, so nothing is true, thereby denying historical truth.
Mm-hmm.
Which sounds like an argument you have with a toddler. Just saying.
I don't know what that's like.
Another characteristic would be the story is selective in its use of ancient documents, so it only uses what fits in with its narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is, it often claims that there is a conspiracy to suppress the claims because of some kind of opposition. So like, well, you're only saying that because you don't want this to come out.
Mm-hmm.
I've got about 10 categories of pseudohistory. One is ancient aliens or technologies or lost lands.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like how aliens came and they built the pyramids and they also had technology, and there's also Atlantis, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm not going to say no, that's not true.
It's not true. Listeners, it's not true.
I won't say it's true either. I'm just saying. I got 9 more we can argue about. Here's another one. The next one is anti-Semitic pseudohistory, so denial of the Holocaust, which is garbage.
Yes, I agree.
Another one is alternative chronologies, so that is mixing up the actual sequence of events to make it fit. Another one is historical falsification, which is the degree we just had, the history of the kings of Britain. It's like historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
There's also historical revisionism. An example of that would be that Shakespeare is not the author of all of his works.
Yeah.
You know how that's been a theory.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the existence of Jesus. It's up for debate. Another category is ethnocentric revisionism. An example of that is the 10 lost tribes of ancient Israel. Another one is racist pseudohistory. So the portrayal of African Americans or Native Americans very, very poorly.
Oh, yeah.
There's also pre-Columbian transoceanic contact theories. So like, who colonized the Americas? Was it the Spanish? Was it the Norse, Muslims, Chinese? There are a lot of theories. There's also psychohistory and religious pseudohistory. So religious pseudohistory would be the Holy Grail and are there descendants of Jesus, very the Da Vinci Code kind of idea. My interesting fact about the pseudohistory article is the entire article. It is very interesting. I feel like it's deserving of a read. I enjoyed it very much.
Nice.
And we have made it through all 6 degrees.
Yay.
We went from Aretha Franklin to Nessun Dorma, to Love at First Sight, to Romance, to Chivalry, to Historia, Regum, Britannia, to Pseudohistory. And I will acknowledge that I pronounced that last one before Pseudohistory differently every time I said it.
That's what makes it fun.
What do you think of this spiral?
Hearing it together at the end makes a lot more sense than it did in my head as I was trying to connect each degree.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I feel like I was all over the place with this one, but there was a lot of really cool stuff in it.
And now it's time for Whim of the Week. This week, Nikki has prepared a Valentine's Day specific whim. Take it away, Nikki.
I have looked up and listed my favorite Valentine's Day traditions from around the world.
Ooh.
So I found an article on boardpanda.com, and it had a whole bunch of different traditions from around the world. One is South Korea. It's not just Valentine's Day that they celebrate love. They celebrate it on the 14th day of every month, not just February.
Oh,
they have
nice.
Days called May's Rose Day, June's Kiss Day, December's Hug Day, April's Black Day, which is my favorite. April's Black Day is when single people all get together to console themselves and eat jajangmyeon, which are black noodles. Probably said that wrong, but as close as I could get. Another great tradition is from South Africa. I love this one. This is based on an ancient Roman festival called Lupercalia. Young women would pin the name of their crush to their sleeve so everyone could see it, which is pretty bold, and I like it. Another really fun one is from, the best I can do is say it's pronounced meow in China, and it's in southwest China. There's a Sister's Meal Festival where women cook a whole bunch of different rice dishes wrapped in silk and give them to their suitors that serenade them.
Ooh.
Here's the fun part. The fate of the relationship depends on what item is found inside of that rice. If you find 2 chopsticks in it, it means love. But if there's a clove of garlic inside, it means that romance is over before it even started.
Oh. Well, it's very clear and direct then, anyway.
Oh, yeah. Another fun tradition is from Wales. And they actually celebrate love on January 25th, on St. Dwinen's Day. They carve spoons really intricately, and they're called love spoons. And they exchange them. Lovers exchange them. This has been around since the 16th century, this tradition.
Aw, that sounds adorable.
It is. It's really cool.
I think there's nothing like a homemade gift that somebody spent time on. It just really means a lot.
I agree. Another fun tradition is in Estonia. On February 14th, they don't celebrate romantic love. They celebrate friendship. It's called Friendship Day.
Oh, that's way better.
And they actually do the same thing in Finland. I know. And my last lovely Valentine's Day tradition is from the Philippines. It is a day when they have mass weddings where hundreds or even thousands of couples get married all at the same time. And these ceremonies are often sponsored by the government as a form of public service.
Wow.
So if you want a free wedding and you live in the Philippines, get married on Valentine's Day.
I am going to stick with what you and I said regarding Valentine's Day last year.
Mm-hmm.
It is a made-up holiday. And I think some of the traditions that you have just talked about are way better than the Hallmark chocolate, jewelry, money extravaganza that the United States does.
That being said, I will not turn down chocolate on Valentine's Day.
Chocolate the day after Valentine's Day is always better because it's 50% off.
That's true. That is an excellent point. And that is the 6 Degrees of Wiki Valentine's Day tradition. Buying way too much candy the day after.
50% off candy. It's the smart choice.
Yep.
That's our episode. Tune in next time for another 6 Degrees of Wiki. Keep up with us at 6degreesofwiki.com and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to let us know what you think.
Looking for early access to episodes and bonus content like bloopers? Go to patreon.com to become a 6 Degrees of Wiki patron and get discounts on merch or even help us choose degrees. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Do